Dr. Alexea.
Hey, Sonya, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Welcome to you and welcome to everyone else who's tuning in today on the Race for the Cure. I'm really excited to host you, Dr. Alexea, and to have this conversation that's really important to our audience about hair and beauty because this year the Race for the Cure is a little bit different. Usually we would all be meeting up in Central Park and spending the morning and afternoon walking and running together and kind of celebrating breast cancer survivors. But this year, because we're going virtual, there's kind of an opportunity to look at other parts of your survivorship. So beyond, getting fit, there's other areas of our lives, which I think this race is going to help us just take care of a little bit better. And so we're here to help you with one part of that journey. A little bit about myself. My name is Sonya Keshwani. I am the founder of StyleEsteem Wardrobe. I am a breast cancer survivor who was diagnosed with triple positive stage 1 breast cancer at age 29 about 2 years ago. And during that time, I had 6 rounds of chemo and 1 year of Herceptin, along with multiple surgeries. And during that time, I had the experience of going through hair loss and seeing that women who go through hair loss don't have very many fashionable options for their journey. And so in between chemo sessions, I started sewing and I came up with head wrap styles that I really loved. I wanted to share that with other women going through the same struggles as me. And that sort of turned into something a little bit bigger, which is, StyleEsteem is more than just head wraps. We're now putting out content to help you through your hair journey and just be better prepared for this so you can thrive as much as possible. So everything we talk about today is going to be available on a few blog posts that we have at stylesteemshop.com. So don't worry, it's all there for you to go back and look at later. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Dr. Alexea?
Sure, absolutely. So I am Dr. Alexea Gaffney. I am a stage 3 breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed with stage 3 right invasive lobular carcinoma. I was hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative, and I also had stage 1 breast cancer on the left. My treatment included bilateral mastectomy, and I chose reconstruction, so I had implant reconstruction. Part of that process included fat grafting, which was a part of my Body Beautiful process for me. I had 8 rounds of chemotherapy. I had AC and Taxol after that, and then 25 cycles of radiation. And I'm on the 10-year plan. So I remain on hormone suppression with letrozole and Zoladex at this time. And that was my cancer treatment journey.
So there's been a lot of questions I've noticed in our community about hair loss because the whole process seems to be a little bit mystical. So let's talk about the experience we had during that time. A lot of people want to know, does all chemo cause hair to fall out, and when does that actually start happening? When did that start happening for you?
Yeah, so not all chemos make people experience hair loss, but for those of us who have had the chemo regimens that cause hair loss, typically around day 16, 17 is average. So between the first and second cycle of chemotherapy. And I think people really grossly underestimate how fast hair loss occurs. I think we all go into it thinking we have time, but my oncologist told me like day 16, 17, it's going to start to drop. And she could not be more spot on. Like, day 14, I lost like this much hair and I was like, oh my God, it's happening. And then day 16, 17, it was big handfuls of my hair. And it was not unexpected, but what caught me off guard was how fast it happened, how much hair was coming out all at one time, and the scalp sensitivity. Like I had a lot of pain and tenderness in my scalp, and I didn't really anticipate that. I wasn't told that that would happen. And so facing the challenges of hair loss, what to do with very patchy hair, because I chose to let my hair fall out on its own. I was personally very resistant to cutting it, although I totally understand why women take control and do cut their hair off. But the pain and the
Yeah.
tenderness was what really caught me off guard.
I think what's interesting is that when you go through hair loss, a lot of us are told, hey, your hair is going to fall out 2 weeks from now. Go ahead and buy a wig and just wait for it to happen. And we're not really told much else. And I think, I think part of it is that you don't really know that much about hair loss unless you've gone through it. And a lot of our doctors, they're such amazing allies for us, but many of them have not been through this themselves. And so they might not know that they need to warn you about the hair loss symptoms. I know when I went through hair loss, I had all these symptoms. Like I had really awful headaches.
Mhm.
I had to like watch out for sensitivity, all these things. And I just thought it was like the chemo. But turns out it's, on day 2 after my first treatment, I started experiencing all this. And I now realize that it was actually the hair loss already kind of getting into gear. And so
Yes.
like a few things that helped me out during that time for the headaches, I actually bought this really nice migraine cap. And it had like little slots, and I put some frozen ice packs in there. And I used that like 24/7 whenever I needed it. Whenever I was at home and not in the office, I would put on that good old ice pack, and it made a huge difference in my life. And then there's other things like using satin pillowcases and satin head
Mhm.
wraps, which kind of watch out for your scalp dryness and
Yep.
sensitivity. And those things really protect you during that time. And of course, like the thinning, I realized also makes you very cold. And it's something that I don't think you really are aware is going to happen, because a lot of us just never have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I really turned to like cozy knitted wraps and just really layering up. Even in the summertime, which is when I had chemo, I would have these like sweaters or like cardigans, and I would take them around with me just to be prepared. But yeah, I mean, just even after that thinning, you kind of begin to realize, like, even if you've accepted that hair is going to fall out, you come to a point where you need to decide if you're going to cut it or not.
Yeah.
And so why don't we share a little bit about that with our listeners? How did you kind of go about it? I know you said you let it stay for a bit, and then you decided later on to cut it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I pretty much let all of my hair that was going to fall out of my head fall out. And I was nearly completely bald, but I had like some soldiers that were like hanging on at the very end. And so instead of having this, a very clean, smooth, bald head, I just had like all of these kind of like scraggly little hairs, like not anything you could do with it, just, what you would see if someone had a really bad comb over. And I remember going to actually a breast cancer event, and I had this beautiful head wrap on, had a face full of makeup. And when I was getting undressed and I took the head wrap on, what I was very present to, took the head wrap off, what I was very present to standing in the mirror was that those remnants of hair didn't match my face and the rest of the beauty that was staring back at me in the mirror. And so I just picked up a razor and I just buzzed that little remnant of hair off. And it was like one of the first times where I like really fully saw myself and was like, wow, there's so much beautiful about me beyond my hair. But, we just think of hair as our femininity or our womanhood and, what makes us soft. And I was someone who hid behind my hair my whole life. And so to just part with those little remnants was really eye-opening and really amazing for me. It was like the first time I really truly saw myself fully. So I think whatever process you choose, just be empowered in it. People kept encouraging me, why don't you just cut it? Why don't you just cut it? And what the reality was is that I had already accepted that I was going to lose my hair to chemo. And although it was a huge part of how I showed up in the world, it was a sacrifice I was willing to make for my health and well-being. But at the same time, I didn't want to part with it until I absolutely had to. So for me, that was my way of taking control over the situation. And we can all take control over our hair loss and how we experience it and be empowered in it, whatever way we choose. There's no right way or wrong way in that regard.
Yeah, and I think when you are kind of in the middle of all this, you're going through so many things, and you're realizing, you know, I'm being forced to walk this path by breast cancer that I never thought I would have to, let alone at a given age or time
Mm-hmm.
in your life. And the hair journey to me was such an empowering thing, like you said. That's, I think, how I would describe it, because after going through those initial stages of the treatment and the symptoms and the side effects, I decided that I was going to do that. I was going to take it into my hands, and I was gonna call the shots about when I, you know, take my hair off, when I put it back on, when I'm gonna receive it back in my life. And I wanted to have that say over my journey. And so I
Mm-hmm.
actually ended up booking an appointment at a salon that works with cancer patients, and they donate services to cancer patients. And so when I went in there, they actually shaved my head. They did it for free, and they also, they shampooed my hair, which was very nice. I mean, just to have that little bit of pampering after
Mm-hmm.
taking your hair away, and just realizing, you're kind of going anew into this next phase of who you are. And it kind of made me realize, like, yeah, part of it was scary because, it kind of gives you away almost. You feel like a sick person, when you don't have
Yes.
your hair, you feel like you're a walking target. But I realized, like, up until that point, hair had really defined my look.
Yes.
And I learned to see myself as a little bit more fluid. My beauty wasn't just contained to my hair. It was now going to be all these other things, including the things that I was doing to fight cancer. And so I have to say that taking the hair away, it didn't go missing for long, that feeling of identity, because I
Mm-hmm.
started to replace it with other things that were a little bit more permanent, like my courage, my bravery,
Yes.
my determination, my faith, all this stuff. So I would say, look for other qualities within you, right? That
Yeah.
are definitely there, and you might not even know. And then also just treating yourself to those experiences, like shampooing your bald head. I think,
Yeah.
you kind of feel like you're creating these positive memories with yourself, which you need to do in this time. I think that that's really important. And just because you don't have hair doesn't mean that you can't stop pampering yourself and treating yourself really, really well.
Yeah. Exactly.
During hair loss, like after your hair has fallen out or you've shaved it off, what like let's talk about what sort of things we should be doing to keep our scalp healthy and to kind of maintain the hygiene. Like for me, I know a big part of my hair journey was defined by the seasons. So because
Mm-hmm.
I went through chemo during the summer, I had to lean very much on like breathable head wraps, coverings, using like the same SPF moisturizer I use on my face. I would just swipe it back to my head and
Yeah.
kind of keep it covered, even if I was wearing something that day on top of it. And then just making sure that the perspiration and all that type of stuff is kind of made clean at the end of the day. So I don't know, like what would you recommend? I guess we're about to be in the fall season, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like as far as like moisturizing and that sort of thing, like what did you use for that?
Yeah, so I continued to shampoo my scalp like normal. Like I was very cognizant to the fact that there's not hair there, but I still need
Mm-hmm.
to nurture, take care of, love on, and stimulate those follicles because
Yes.
at some point I'm looking for this hair to come back. And,
Mm.
my healthy future hair was going to come from a healthy scalp.
Sure.
So I continued to shampoo. I didn't really condition my scalp, but I would massage it.
Yeah.
I would make sure that I was moisturizing it. And so I would use things like coconut oil. I
Mm.
would use fresh aloe vera gel from an aloe plant to
Mm-hmm.
soothe my scalp because it was anti-inflammatory. It has pain relieving properties. I would put the aloe plant leaves in the refrigerator before I use them so that the gel was cool to soothe my scalp, especially right before the hair was falling out and when the hair had fallen out. I always knew
Yeah.
when my hair was going to fall out because I could feel it. I would
Yeah.
experience this pain and sensitivity and tenderness over my scalp. And so that really helped, kind of like how you use the migraine caps. And then, you know, like we mentioned, head coverings to take care of my hair. So during the summer, right, we're sweating, we are releasing oil from our skin and our scalp, you know, and so it's very easy to maintain. But in the cooler months, when the fall is coming in, then definitely wanting to make sure we maintain moisture and hydration and not forget about sun protection. As long as the sun is shining, our skin, including our scalps, are at risk for sun damage. And so we want to make sure that we avoid that as well. So I absolutely agree. I used to put SPF sunscreen on my scalp, and then I want to say my hair, but there was no hair there because I got treated spring, summer, and fall as well. And just maintaining like temperature control. So much of our body temperature is regulated through our head and our scalp. And so the appropriate weight of head coverings was important. And just, you know, decreasing the frequency that I would otherwise have washed my scalp and hair, but balancing that with keeping away the sweat from hot flashes and so many things to consider.
Oh my goodness. And then there's also the question of, you know, it's not just the hair on your head that's part of this process, but it's hair from other parts of your body. And so a lot of, you know, you might not realize that you will lose nose hairs and pubic hairs and all this other hair. And there's, you know, those each have their own set of issues that come with it. Like I know, and to this day, I still do this because it really comforts me, but I like putting a little bit of like a organic sort of petroleum jelly that I use on a Q-tip, and I like to swab the inside of my nostrils because the whole hair loss process there caused a lot of dryness and cracking, and it became very difficult to just have like pain-free breathing even on some days. So stuff like that, like the saline sprays, like things that are gentle and natural, I would definitely recommend for those areas because you're also getting to it, you know, it's less topical in those areas because it is kind of on the inside, like your nostrils, and then like other areas. And this actually works really well for even symptoms like nausea or pain in other areas. But like a magnesium spray is something that a friend got me, and it's actually something that is used during pregnancy, but it works really well for, like I said, like the sensitivity, the bruising, and the nausea. So you can spray it on various different parts. So if you're having that soreness, like in your pubic region because of hair loss, you can use it there. And you can also spray it on your torso and your wrists when you're, you know, not feeling well after treatment. So there's some products like that I thought were really cool. You know, you can kind of get a lot of use out of it. So I would recommend maybe finding those things and having those things on hand because like you said, when hair loss happens, it's like very quick. And you know, sometimes you don't even buy your head coverings in time or your wig in time. And if that's the route you're going, and you know, you all of a sudden you need all these things, and it's so important to just like keep a short list and have those things ready for you. So, you know, and then of course, like you don't want to lose sight of, you know, in taking care of yourself, you can start to feel a little bit like a science project. I know I did. I was always trying to patch, you know, or like recover or like do something to like fix something. And you know, I had to remind myself, like, you really do need to also spend time staying connected to your beauty. It's really important. For me, especially, it was just reminding myself that I'm worthy of being pampered and worthy of having fun with my look and creating those positive memories. So a big thing that I leaned on was getting really dressed up for my infusions. And every time I would walk into my infusion center, I would kind of joke, like, you know, my nurses would compliment my outfit, and I would tell them, hey, I'm like dressing up for you guys. You have to stare at my face for the next 6 hours. So I just want to keep things, you know, fresh and fun for both of us. So you know, it can really add a bit of joy to your experience when you do those things for yourself. Did you have an experience with that where you paid attention to beauty during your treatments, like throughout the infusions?
I was always had on a bright lipstick, and you know, I would coordinate my outfits with whatever mood I had going on. You know, my thing was just like eliminating this whole situation. I had lemon necklaces, lemon bracelet
I
charms,
love it.
lemon shirts, lemon flip-flops, and I would just coordinate head wrap, tank top, sweater, because you had to have those layers in that chemo suite, you
Mm-hmm.
know, whatever pants or leggings I was wearing. So I went for just beautiful, cute, comfortable.
I love it.
And I made sure I looked good for chemo. I wasn't coming in there in pajamas. I wasn't coming in there in, just
Mm-hmm.
any old sweatpants. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to feel good through that 6 hours in the chemo suite.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted my sisters, my stepmom, my best friend, whoever was coming with me, to know that I feel empowered in this. I'm walking confidently into this chemo suite to get this treatment. And, I felt like my experience may have been different than other people's just
Yeah.
because of how I showed up for the occasion.
I don't doubt it. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about when the hair does come back, because that, to me, that's almost like the beginning of part two. It's not the end. It's just like a whole new journey that's starting.
Hmm.
Um, so like hair can come back differently, right? Like, and there's so much that goes into it. Like a lot of people have not had that experience with such short hair. So first of all, dealing with it coming back differently, and then how, styling it is also a challenge. Coping with seeing yourself differently and then making it work for your look. I know you had an experience with that that was really, it required a shift from you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it was very jarring for me. When my hair came back, it first came back white and it
Mm-hmm.
came back bone straight. And you can see I have very curly hair, and I previously relaxed my hair because that was, a societal pressure. And I had just gotten to the point where I was loving my hair. It had grown out. I knew how to take care of it. And I was loving life with my curls. And I lost my hair to chemo. And when my hair began to come back, it was straight and it was white. So I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is going on? Is my
Yeah.
hair going to be straight? Did chemo take my curls? Because chemo can give people curls, or it
Yeah.
can change the color of your hair, the texture of your hair, the density of your hair. And so for me, the idea that my hair might be straight was very challenging for me.
Yeah.
And it took a little while for it to start to grow back. It was like 3 months
Mm-hmm.
from my chemo when it really even started to come in, and
Yeah.
another couple of months beyond that before I began to see some
Mm-hmm.
curls and something that was reminiscent of my old hair, my former hair.
Yeah,
So that
I
was,
agree with you. Yeah, that can be the hardest part, is like waiting for it to come back and then seeing that it's maybe not what you expected, and then just trying to wait it out, because it's also a matter of letting that treatment cycle through your body, right? Because I think
mm-hmm,
when you're truly kind of months out from treatment, then your body can really bounce back. It doesn't happen right away.
right.
And so you'll notice that with different things, appetite comes back maybe a little bit more quickly than hair does. So
Yep.
each kind of has its own, timeline. And I think that's really important to remember. Something that you can do though, while you're waiting for it to come back and kind of get stronger, you can support your hair by just having like a healthier lifestyle, right? Like there's so much you can do
Absolutely.
with food. Having food that is a little bit more geared towards hair regrowth, like having very protein rich food, having food that is like rich with zinc, which is really good for your eyelashes and brows, things like
Mm-hmm.
beans and nuts and seafood, those sort of like dense, nutritious foods. And biotin's another one, right? I
Yeah.
know people who have asked to get on biotin during kind of like towards the tail end of chemo,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something to talk to your doctor about. But I know people who have started it as early as that. So, I mean, as a doctor, what's your take on biotin?
So biotin I used topically, and I still
Mm-hmm.
use it topically in
An
my
oil, right?
hair. Yep, biotin
Yeah,
oil. I mix it with Jamaican black castor oil,
nice.
and I just, massage it into my scalp right after I wash my hair. And, you know, it's something that I reapply like every week to 10 days over my scalp. It's moisturizing, but you got to be careful because it can be sticky and it can clog
Yeah.
your pores. But you can also ingest it. It's a nutrient. I took supplements during treatment, but my doctor was she asked me to be very mindful of what I took like around my chemo days. So I would usually stop 24 hours before and then resume 72 hours after. And, you know, what I just focused on was like what I was eating more so than
Yeah.
supplementing. And I tried to eat foods that were rich in the vitamins and nutrients that we need to support our hair and our skin and really our nails, because they're all an extension of one another. So you
For
mentioned like
sure.
what are we drinking? So lots of hydration, right? Lots of just water. I would add citrus fruits or like muddle berries in my water so that I would get, you know, antioxidants and vitamin C. You know, eating healthy fats like avocado and the healthy fats that are in fatty fish like salmon and tuna. Those are, like you mentioned, nutrient dense
Yeah.
foods, and eating lots of nuts and legumes just to
Yeah.
make sure I was getting all of the good vitamins. So when I think of what's going to support my hair and skin, vitamin A, vitamin C, zinc for sure, the B
Yeah.
vitamins, so a good B complex or foods that are rich in vitamin B, like
Yeah.
eggs, for instance. And then just getting iron and folate, which is another B vitamin, and just really taking great care of myself overall.
Yeah, and I love that you kind of touched on hydration, right? Because
Hmm.
hydrating your body and then hydrating with oils is really important. But then there's also another piece of it, and I know it happened to me, and you know it happened to you, and I know a lot of women go through this where they'll go through a diagnosis, and it'll really cause them to not just reevaluate the way they're eating, but also what they're putting on their body, right? Like we,
Yeah,
us ladies, we have so many different things that we like to use as part of our daily beauty routine, and we really kind of hit pause and we start to reconsider, hey, should I be using these things? Should I replace them? Are the new products going to do what I need them to do?
right.
And I know for me, I definitely had that conversation with myself, and I've since scaled back the number of things I use, and the things that I use are very much targeted to what I need them to do, and they're, you know, as clean as they can possibly be.
Yeah,
And so, you know, I think something that's really important to remember is when you're styling your curls, it's important to hydrate them with a styling product as well. So like I use a curling cream, for example, and it's
hmm,
something that it creates like really beautiful natural curls that are also kind of contained, because when the curls are coming apart, that's when the frizz starts to happen and it kind of gets
right.
unmanageable, right? So there are
Yep.
certain things that will look out for your hair health and at the same time help you look great in your curls, whether it's like a long-term thing that you're going to have curls or if it's just the short, you know, the short phase. Just keep in mind that you can add products into your routine that do a lot of different things for you. um,
Yeah.
but you know, on that note, like as you're kind of getting back into having like the lifestyle of having hair, right? It can
Hmm.
be tough. Like
Yep.
I know like for us, you know, you get so used to seeing your face in the mirror, you get so used to seeing your bald head throughout treatment, and this is who you are, and this is like the bald head begins to represent on bad days or even not bad days. Sometimes you just see it and you're like, yeah, you know what? I am dealing with a diagnosis. I'm dealing with chemo. This is life right now. You know, it'll change one day, but that's what it is. And then
Yeah.
your hair starts to come back and it starts to represent, you know, a timeline almost. You know, it's this long, that means I'm like 2 months out from chemo. It's this long, oh my gosh, and look, this is like half a year out from chemo worth of hair growth.
Yeah.
And it can become challenging because I don't think a lot of us have an idea of how to sort of like process what we've been through. You know, it's
Hmm.
different for everybody, and for some of us, like you have to find a community to talk to your peers about what you're going through. Some people need, you know, to get counseling. Other people just lean on family members, and that's, you know, whatever you need to do is fine. I think it's important to not um, not see your hair loss and then see the regrowth and kind of hold yourself to this like, oh, it's this long, I should be fine, I should be, you know, I should be moving along now, and it's wrapped up and things are done, and now I can just like move on with my life. I know that
Yeah.
that's something I try to not get too attached to when I see myself in the mirror. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's our hair regrowth, and
Hmm.
the journey is as much of a process as going through surgery and chemo and all of
Yeah.
that, right? It's still, no matter how good you feel about yourself, no matter how beautiful you feel or empowered in any given moment, there's still those hard times and those hard days and those hard moments where reality strikes, and where there's a reminder that I'm, not back to normal, or I'm not back to my old self. And something that really helped and encouraged me throughout the the healing process and the recovery process was that, I'm not fighting back to get to my 37-year-old self that I was on April 2nd, 2018, before I got that diagnosis
Hmm.
on April 3rd, right? So many amazing things came out of this, and and it's not the cancer. The cancer wasn't the amazing part. It was the
Hmm.
personal growth. It was really appreciating my own strengths and my own beauty, really appreciating
Hmm.
how brave and courageous I was for going through those things, and why that is. How I showed up in every aspect of my life. And,
Yeah.
the hair growth process was just another set of milestones in this very long process of things. So it
Yeah.
was just, I tried to let it be a reminder of how much I've overcome. And I remember like getting my first haircut and like not wanting to part with those little bone straight white hairs that
Yeah.
6 months prior I was like complaining and crying about.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how in the beginning of something we don't accept it, right? We
Yeah.
don't receive it for ourselves. And as we continue to grow through the process and become empowered in the process and appreciate each step and milestone, then it becomes this thing that, oh my gosh, I don't even, you sure you have to cut those? Like I need
Yeah.
those, that I need that length.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah, it's amazing how you kind of give yourself that space to just accept all parts of how amazing you are, because when you take a step back, when your hair does start growing, and you have time to kind of like get a little bit away from all of like the meat of that like treatment and the diagnosis and all that. I think one thing you realize is like, yeah, I went through that. I did that, and I made it. And there's a quote that goes something like, one day people that you don't even know you will talk about how they met you.
Mhm.
And that's something I like to think of as for myself. Like I kind of feel like I didn't really even know really who I was. Like there were things about me that I thought were, you know, just tied to my personality or me as a human being, that I thought those things made up me as a person. But going through this diagnosis and coming away from it, I feel like now I know who that person was, and I know the person she
Yeah.
became, and that's who I am now. So I like to
Yeah.
think about that as the time when I really met myself, and I like to talk to myself as though it is like, wow, you met this person who was here all along, but this experience brought you to her, and now you can go forward in life with all these experiences and all this sort of faith and strength and all that. So yeah, that would be something I would hope that anyone who's newly diagnosed or sort of having a hard time with their hair journey can remember that, and just know that that does happen.
Yeah. While you're sitting here describing those things, I'm
Yeah.
like so present to how if someone said to me 2 years ago, 3 years ago, can you describe yourself? I would have
Hmm.
said, something about my career, my title. I would have said,
Yeah.
I'm 5'2", I have, curly
Hmm.
brown
Yeah.
hair, and, whatever. I would have said something about my body frame or my
Yeah.
body type or something like that, because society tells us that's who we are. That's what we are. Like
Hmm.
what
Yeah.
is in these physical bodies? What am I carrying around like on this vessel, when
Mm.
deep down inside I am a powerful woman who is resilient and courageous and bold. I'm a stand for other women,
Mhm.
And what I do in my life is create healing pathways for other women to,
Yeah.
have total health and wellness. But without this experience and this journey and this process, I might have always been a woman who was a doctor and 5'2" and had curly
Yeah.
brown hair.
I love it. And now you're all these other amazing things and paying it forward. So, I thank you so much for being here. You've been such a support to me as a fellow survivor and sister. And I'm so glad we could take this time to sit down and kind of talk about some of the things that I don't think um, anyone talks about when it comes to hair loss. It's things that we all want to know that we wish someone would have told us. And I'm glad we
Yes.
got to share that and hopefully help some women out there who are going through it. So thank you so much for being here. Um, I also want to thank everyone for tuning in and for listening. This is personally my second year as a Power Ambassador for the Komen Foundation in Greater New York, and I'm so happy to be able to share these bits of wisdom with you. And I really hope that you will continue to stay involved. The race might be over now this weekend, but the fundraising still continues, and creating survivors is a tall order. So let's create more survivors together, and let's stay involved. And please connect with us and join our journey to 30. More about that on social media. And yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for making this community what it is. All right, bye guys.